Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our trending segment. Our guest today is a competitor in the BASS Nation Series. He's an expert on desert lakes, western desert lakes. Anytime I find someone that's an expert on western desert lakes, I like to talk to them because that's where my heart is. He's also the host of the Chase Colby podcast, which can be found anywhere where podcasts can be found. He's going to fish the National Professional Fishing League Series starting in 2021. Please welcome to the show, Chase Colby. Chase, how are you today?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We've got this building buzz that's going on right now about the National Professional Fishing League. And when I came across your bio the other day, it said that you're committed to fishing this new series. I want to talk to guys that are doing this because I think that this is a really interesting new direction that fishing might be going, and I wanted to hear what you thought about it. What draws you to this organization?
It's when I first originally heard about it. I think it was on Ike Live. Actually, they announced it about a year ago on Halloween. Actually, I think it was their Halloween show, and I had just got back from a Bass Nation qualifier event, and as soon as Brad Fuller and Alan McCullough, as soon as the guys spoke and started talking about what they were doing and their direction, it just intrigued me. Out west, we literally, we don't have many options. We have the FLW Costas, we got the Wombass, but in order to really fulfill a dream and go fish professionally, we just don't have the path out here. You can go fish the Bassmaster Opens, you can, do all the travel and whatnot, and maybe come home with some debt or maybe possibly break even. But so it just never has been something that I've been willing to do. And so when these guys started announcing it and talking about it, their interest and their drive, the way that they spoke, it just intrigued me. And so immediately I reached out to, I remember the day I reached out to Alan McCullough via text message and, asked him what I needed to do to have any kind of conversation with him. And they sent me a link, and I went on the link and built a resume. Out in the West, like I say, we don't have, there's not that many options. What are BFLs? We don't have BFLs. We don't have, all that. So I put together the best resume that I could possibly put together, and they reached out to me in late February and offered me an invitation, and it was, at this point it's been amazing, and it really has. So that's, from a West Coast guy, that's about the gist of my perspective of what's about to come.
Well, now you live in Utah, correct?
That's correct, Southern Utah.
Okay, so Southern Utah. That's going to be a lot of driving back and forth. Are you going to continue to stay anchored out here in the West? Are you going to continue to fish regional events out here, or are you going to make the move back there?
No, I'm going to stay here. This is my roots. This is where I'm. This is where I'm from. One of the biggest benefits of the NPFL is we're going to have every event's going to have 4 weeks in between each event. So it gives me time to take time off work, travel out there, compete for 8 to 7 days basically, but it'll be 10 to 12 days on the road, and turn around and come home and turn around and do it again in 4 weeks. So as far as regional events, I'll always, depending on the schedule, obviously, I'm going to always fish the Wand Bass US Open, the Bass Nation regional events, if time allows. Just that I feel like that's my best opportunity to get to the Bassmaster Classic. You know, if I'm back east fishing event, and time allows and money allows and time off and everything else allows me to stop in and fish a bass open, you know, I'll do that. But I'm committed to the NPFL, and I'm going to stay right here in Southern Utah and travel back and forth.
One of the things that I have been hearing a lot about, and because I've talked to several guys that are going to do this, they just rave about the professional services offered by NPFL. Did that have something to do with your decision? I mean, I'm hearing that they will talk to sponsors for you, and does that have something to do with your decision to do this?
You know, they are very, very good guys. You know, I went back to the Bassmaster Classic this last year, luckily before all the COVID-19. You know, we were able to get back to the expo, my wife and I, and we got to sit down and I mean, personally talk to Paul Benson. They're just great people. You know, there's I've been in business my whole life, and there's, you know, there's two types of people. There's corporate people, and then there's people, and I really feel like these people, they're people. So to answer your question, you know, that yes, the professionalism and their, you know, their personalities, they're just, you know, they're great people, and it's going to be a great organization. We're going to have fun, and it's going to be a win-win.
Excellent. So the first season of the NPFL is going to take place in a lot of eastern waterways. How do you feel about that? Have you had much experience fishing in the east? How do you feel about fishing water that might be foreign?
You know, I don't have a ton of experience out there, but luckily, you know, about 5 years ago, I started preparing myself. This is something I've always wanted to do. I got the opportunity of being a marshal at Lake Hartwell. I got to not fish with, but ride along with Jacob Wheeler, Chris Lane, Brandon Polinick, Cliff Prince. You know, so I've put myself in a position, you know, in the last 5 or 7 years to somewhat, you know, educate myself on these lakes. I have a really good friend of mine lives on Lake Conroe. You know, so I've had a little bit of experience, but coming from the West Coast, you know, as you see a lot of these Bassmaster elite guys, you know, they thrive and they do well because out here in the West we have it's very diverse. You know, it really is. You got to have a confidence level with clear water, and you know, I feel like the morning that I showed up at Lake Hartwell, you know, to be a marshal at the Bassmaster Classic. It brought me home. I mean, literally when we got on the boat, we were driving around, I felt at home. So, you know, there's a lot of lakes, you know, like Lake Eufaula, for example. I've never been on Lake Eufaula. I've been at Guntersville, a few lakes, you know, different things like that. But I really think that fishing is fishing. And if you have a mindset of, you know, finding bass and making a bite, I think you'll be all right.
Well, you know, I know a lot of those guys out in the back east don't want to hear this, but guys from the west brought flipping back there. Guys from the west brought drop shotting back there, and they brought all the other, you know, clear water techniques, which is what we have to do out here. You know, a lot of what the bass fishing world knows about the use of electronics came from the west. So, you know, if you can, you should be fine out. You should be fine in a situation like that.
I really do. I mean, it makes me nervous just a little bit on some of the rivers and things like that. You know, we don't have a full schedule, but I do know that we're going to Lake Eufaula in March, early March. So I feel like I'm very educated when it comes to electronics. I've been around them my whole life. When I was, you know, just a little kid, you know, we used to. I actually grew up fishing for lake trout in 70 feet of water, crystal clear water, and electronics was a big deal back then. You know, I was just 10 and 12 years old, and all we had was what we used to call the paper graphs. But you know, the paper graphs were a big part of what we did, and you know, that's how we went out there and caught lake trout. And then I got into fishing for smallmouth and stuff like that. And so when it comes to electronics, when you put me on a body of water, I really think with the technology that we got today, it's just a matter of going out there and finding the right fish in the right areas. So I think we'll be all right.
Chase, have you talked to any of your supporters or sponsors about this? I'm sure you have. And feel free to mention them if you'd like to right now. What has been their reaction to you doing this?
It's been really good. I mean, there's a lot of people that are surprised. It's a big commitment. It's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
The expense. From to be from the West Coast, not to mention the entry fees and the things like that. I mean, I'm a family man. I've got 3 boys, a beautiful wife, and but they're going to come with me. We kind of committed to it. That was the very first decision. That was the very first question. I talked to my family, my wife, my kids, and we basically made the decision that we're going to go do this together as a family, and we're going to trek across the country. We're going to see things that we have never seen before, and we're going to have a good time at it. As far as sponsor goes, I've been in touch with a lot of people. Right now it's kind of contract time of year, if you will. So there's I've been in conversation with from very good people, big companies. Nothing's set in stone. But as far as Mercury Marine, we've been on board with those guys for the last 5 years, and they're excited about it. Dobbins Rods, West Coast, originally West Coast Rods. Miranda, she's been fantastic. She's been nothing but huge help. Lou's Reels, Robertson's Marine, the local Ranger dealer here in town. They're super excited for me. It's gonna be an interesting year, but I'm very excited and got a very positive attitude about all of it.
Excellent. We're speaking with Chase Colby. He is going to be fishing the very new NPFL next year, starting in 2021. First tournament is in March, and he's shared us a lot of good information. Chase, I want to shift gears a little bit right now. The desert lakes are near and dear to my heart. I have spent a lot of time on Mojave and Meade, tiny bit of time on Powell. I used to call Lake Havasu Lake Havaclu because it used to kill me all the time. But I spent a lot of time on these desert lakes, and probably not as much as you. But the U.S. Open is coming up in a couple of weeks here in October. That's at Lake Mead, and that's kind of the crowning jewel for what we have in the West. What should we expect from Lake Mead in a couple of weeks?
It's gonna be tough. I mean, it really is. It's the U.S. Open has always been a grinder tournament. Back in the day, it was in September, in kind of the heat of the year. Then they pushed it back to October, which kind of threw some anglers for kind of a curveball, if you will. It did change it up a little bit. I don't. There's not as good as a topwater bite that time of the year as it used to when it was in September. But this year they're pouring a ton of water out of Lake Powell into Lake Mead right now. Anybody that follows the Wayne's Words, that you can go on Wayne's Words, which is a Lake Powell website basically, and it tells you kind of what the level of waters is going in, what's coming out, and whatever's coming out of Lake Powell goes right into Lake Mead. And when you can see that Lake Powell is draining like it is, that means Lake Powell's on the rise, or I mean Lake Mead. I'm sorry. So Lake Powell's on coming down, so that means Lake Mead's rising. So with that, there's that we got a moon phase that's coming right now. Last weekend they had a Wild West Bass tournament, so there's already been a ton of pressure. And then this coming week, there is the Bass Nation Western Regional, which I'll be competing in as well. So it's going to have a ton of pressure. So it's as far as the U.S. Open, it's going to be all about putting a plan together, sticking to your plan, going out and just committing. One of the worst things you can do at Lake Mead is get spun out and try to do this, try to do that. Time before you know it, you're out of time, and you either hero or zero. So it's just a matter of putting a plan together, have a good practice, and stick to your plan and go for it.
So for a good way, well, first of all, getting 5 in the U.S. Open every day, getting 5 fish every day, that's the key. So if you can get about, I don't know, 7 or 8, or what do you think is a good first couple of days to give you a chance on day 3?
On the first day, you're going to have 11 to 12 pounds to get
Oh, wow.
to get you in that first place. And then day 2 and day 3, if you can scrap up 9 to 10 pounds, you'll be in there.
Okay, yeah, that's always such a tough tournament, and ounces, man, you got to be good at culling. You got to make sure you have that culling board with you, because you can't eyeball those fish. Usually they're carbon copies sometimes.
Yeah, I've messed up on that one before.
So you fish all the desert lakes. You fish Powell and Mead and Mojave and Havasu, and we've seen a real resurgence in some of those lakes. Which would you say is the healthiest of the lakes right now, or are there more than one really healthy lake right now?
Lake Havasu is by far the healthiest lake that we have on the Colorado River. And the reason for that is simply because of the management. They do such a fantastic job of managing that lake. They've spent a ton of money putting habitat in their structure, that kind of thing. So by far, Lake Havasu is definitely the healthiest because of the very well managed lake. They do a fantastic job.
Now, to me, the growth of the smallmouth fishery, obviously it's helped Havasu, but I mean, Mojave has really come back well recently, and Mead also. Getting back to that U.S. Open, how important will smallmouth be in that U.S. Open?
The smallmouth are very important at the U.S. Open. I think it's probably, I would dare say that 3 out of the 5 fish are smallmouth that are weighed per angler, which, you figure 250 anglers, 5 fish, and 3 out of those 5 fish are typically smallmouth. However, the guy that brings 5 largemouth per day is the guy that wins.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great comment. We're talking to Chase Colby. He's a desert expert. He's a desert lakes expert. He's going to be fishing the National Professional Fishing League starting next year. Chase, tell us about the podcast. I've watched a few episodes. I really like what you do with that podcast. When did you start that, and what was the motivation behind it?
I started it early this spring, actually, and a lot of it was based around what's coming with the National Professional Fishing League, and being an angler, and giving my sponsors a place to market their brand and their product for them, for their support towards me. But most importantly, being a West Coast guy, I realistically sat down and started it to educate upcoming anglers, high school anglers, even new anglers, people that are just getting into fishing out here in the West, and especially in Utah. It's not as big out here as it is out east. So there's a huge learning curve. So I started it simply to educate people about bass fishing and the sport of bass fishing, and the fact that these kids, that's a hobby. These kids can do this after school. We've got plenty of lakes. We've got plenty of body of water around here that we can compete. The U.S. Open was one of my first big, major events. And when I went to it, when I was freshly married at 22 years old, I was hooked. I went to that event as a non-boater, and I was absolutely hooked. And the fact that I found out about the U.S. Open, through the WAN Bass, I think it's the Western Bass News. I accidentally fell on a newspaper, literally. I've been fishing my whole life, grew up fishing, but I come across the Western Bass newsletter, and I found out about this tournament. It had already taken place. And so I called Billy Egan and said, I want to participate in this tournament. And he said, well, it just got over, but next year, it'll be next year. And so I signed up right then, and I planned for it for 8 months. I mean, it was exciting. So the fact that the podcast I had to take a little bit of a break because of the COVID-19. I had to focus on some work and some personal things, so I haven't been able to release an episode the last couple of months because of just the challenging times that we're in, and work's been more important. But the podcast is 100% to educate new anglers, high schoolers, people that want to know about bass fishing. It is a fishing education podcast, but moving forward with the National Professional Fishing League, there will be a lot of what I do, the lakes that I go to back east, and I'm going to kind of do a tutorial and kind of compare them to the lakes that we fish out here to help educate some of these people out here in the West.
That's good stuff. I'm finding that there's just an insatiable hunger for this kind of stuff. I mean, I see it with what I'm doing here. It's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. You talked about COVID. We've seen a resurgence in fishing, and tackle shops are out of product because there's not enough. They can't fill it fast enough. It's because people can't do stuff that they used to do. So they're coming to fishing, and when I talk to various companies in this industry, their number one concern is how do we get these new anglers? How do we latch into these new anglers and get them, introduced to our products? And I think what you're doing is a great thing. I wanted to touch base with you on, I know that you've done some fishing schools. Is that mainly high school age, or what is that about?
No, it's not necessarily just high school. I mean, there's the Southern Utah camp that I do. We originally started. This year was, unfortunately, it was canceled because of COVID this spring. Typically we do it in the spring, but it's basically just been designed around a handful of guys that want to learn how to fish. And so I just get together, and then all of a sudden, one thing went to another and another, and it got bigger and bigger. Unfortunately, this year is, we had to cancel it because of COVID-19, and right when all that, quarantine stuff, was happening, was when we wanted to be out at Sand Hollow. But it's, it's not necessarily just for high school. It's just for whoever wants to, whoever wants to go fish and learn about the sport. I can only take so many people, but I'll do 2 or 3 days a month in March, typically, because March is kind of when everybody's, kind of getting cabin fever. They want to get out. And here in Southern Utah, we have a fantastic fishery, Sand Hollow. You can go out there, you can literally go out there and catch a 5-pounder on any cast. And
wow.
To get a new angler, a 5-pounder, if that's his first fish, I guarantee he's going to be hooked for life. It might ruin him, but he'll be hooked for life.
That's right. Well, Chase, it's been a great conversation today. What is next for you down the road? Obviously, we have the Pro Tour next year, but what does the next 6 months look like for you? Getting ready for that?
It's just that. I mean, you said it. It's the 2021 season, the NPFL season, the first inaugural season, and the preparation for that. I mean, we're 6 months away. I still got a lot of sponsor things to get lined out and hammered out. This time of the season is pretty busy for sponsorships, but we're having some real good success. And so it's just goal oriented. I don't know what else to say other than preparation for the 2021 season of the NPFL, and hopefully I can go out there and be successful by at least winning a couple events and place in the top 20 and come home with some money and represent my sponsors and the people that support me in a very professional manner.
All right. Well, Chase, thanks for being with us today. This was a great conversation. Good luck to you. We'll talk to you soon.